The galaxy had changed too quickly, too violently, and too painfully for anyone to pretend otherwise. For decades, humans and the Empire had circled each other with suspicion, each believing the other would strike first. Entire star systems lived like candles trembling in a storm, waiting for the flame to die. Governments struggled, soldiers trained without rest, and civilians prayed to any god they believed in. That breaking point finally came when the line, a fragile border of defense satellites, collapsed under the pressure of a single misunderstanding. Humans thought they had fired a warning shot. The believed humans were preparing an ambush. For one long hour, every warship on both sides aimed its weapons at the other. The galaxy stood on the edge of a disaster that could erase entire civilizations. But before the first shot could be fired, the High Council made a surprising proposal. A marriage, a symbolic joining of two worlds, meant to show trust, unity, and hope. It sounded almost ancient, like something pulled from the oldest myths, yet it was the only idea strong enough to shake both sides awake. A marriage, they said, could do what treaties could not. A marriage could show the galaxy that peace was not just signed on paper, but carried in the lives of two souls willing to stand together. And so humanity searched for someone who could hold the weight of billions. Someone wise, calm, gentle, and brave. They did not want a soldier this time. They wanted a heart that could speak louder than weapons. After long discussions, one name rose again and again. Elias Rowan, a young diplomat known for his quiet courage and unbreakable patience. Elias was not powerful. He was not tall or intimidating. He had no shining medals and no heroic scars. What he did have was a way of listening that made even angry generals pause. He believed deeply in peace, not as a weak dream, but as something worth protecting with every breath. When he was approached for the role, he did not answer immediately. He spent one night alone, staring at the sky through the window of his small apartment, wondering if one ordinary man could carry such a heavy burden. He finally whispered yes. Across the stars, Princess of listened to the news with mixed feelings. She was known as the jewel of regal, disciplined, and trained since childhood for leadership. She imagined her future partner would be a fierce human commander, someone with strong shoulders and a voice that filled a room, someone who could stand beside her as an equal in the storm. Instead, she was told a gentle diplomat was coming. She did not know whether to feel relieved or disappointed. She had seen too many warriors, too many battles, too many losses. A gentle man sounded peaceful, yet peace often came with hidden fragility. She feared he would be crushed by the pressure of her world. The day Elias arrived at the capital, the sky itself seemed to hold its breath. The landing platform was enormous, made of dark crystal and silver metal. Thousands of citizens filled the viewing balconies, their glowing eyes following every movement. Bodies were tall and elegant, their skin shimmering faintly like starlight underwater. Compared to them, Elias looked small, soft, almost breakable. But he stepped off the shuttle calmly, his hands open, his expression steady. His black hair brushed lightly against the wind, and though his heart pounded so loudly he thought the whole galaxy could hear it, his smile stayed gentle. Watched him from the top of the ceremonial stairs. Their eyes met for the first time. He bowed. She bowed. And something shifted quietly between them. He did not tremble. She did not glare. They simply looked at each other like two people who understood the weight of their moment. The entire palace waited for signs of fear or rejection, but neither appeared. Later, as they stood side by side before the cameras of 100 worlds, noticed the way Elias' fingers shook slightly. Not from weakness, but from the responsibility he carried. And she felt something unexpected, respect. The marriage ceremony was short but filled with ancient symbols. Silver threads were wrapped around their wrists. Light crystals shimmered in patterns that represented unity. When the final vow was spoken, everyone exhaled in relief. Yet inside their hearts, neither Elias nor knew what the future held. Were they saviors? Were they sacrifices? Or were they simply two lonely souls pushed together by fate? Only time would answer. Elias had crossed the stars, stepped onto alien soil, and survived the glare of 1,000 curious eyes. Yet nothing had prepared him for the palace of the Empire. It was a world of scale and light, of silence and expectation, where even the floors seemed to hum with power. Ceilings soared like sky towers, corridors curved like living veins, and every door gleamed with metal that pulsed faintly under his fingertips. Elias felt small, almost swallowed by the majesty around him. From the moment he entered, the palace seemed to test him. Rituals that had taken centuries to perfect expected precision beyond human practice. Courtiers floated in midair, their hands moving in patterns Elias could not mimic, their voices weaving harmonies he could barely follow. He tried to bow, to speak their words, to honor their customs. Each attempt was clumsy. Every mistake drew a glance, sometimes a frown. Watched him quietly. The first day she saw him trip over a ceremonial step and nearly knock over a hovering lantern. He caught it with one hand, held it awkwardly, and smiled sheepishly. The courtiers gasped. She felt a mix of embarrassment and amusement. For all his gentle manners, Elias was human, fallible, imperfect, and alive in a way her people were not. Yet there was something in him that made her pause. He did not panic when mistakes happened. He did not bow to fear or expectation. He tried again, with patience and a calm she had never seen in any other human or before. In his persistence she sensed quiet courage. In his humility she felt something rare, honesty. Days passed. Elias learned the palace's strange rules and awkward technology. He struggled with floating tools that twisted out of control in human hands. He mispronounced words that no one else dared to say incorrectly, and yet he never stopped trying. Each failure became a step, each confusion a lesson. The courtiers whispered among themselves. Some doubted him. Some began to admire him. Began to seek him out in the palace gardens, where the sunlight filtered through tall crystal trees, scattering rainbows across the ground. She watched him kneel on alien soil, adjusting the delicate floating irrigation devices with careful fingers, muttering quietly to himself when nothing worked. He spoke as if he understood the plants, the wind, and the light, though they were not of his world. His voice was soft, patient, and strangely melodic in the alien air. One day she approached him, hiding behind a silver tree, curious about the human who refused to be afraid. "Why do you keep trying?" she asked, her voice low, almost lost among the whispering leaves. Elias looked up, brushing a lock of hair from his eyes. He smiled, a quiet, steady smile. "Because if I do not try, what hope is there? I may not understand everything here, but I can learn. And if I learn, maybe I can help." Her heart stirred in a way she had not expected. She had studied humans from afar and heard their legends. Brave, reckless, sometimes foolish, but capable of astonishing resilience. Yet standing before her was a human who did not boast of strength or courage, but lived it quietly, humbly. The weeks turned into months. Elias adapted slowly, but he adapted. He learned which ceremonial robes fit him, how to speak without startling the court, and when to remain silent. He still stumbled at times, and he still startled courtiers with his unfamiliar gestures, but noticed that he carried each mistake with dignity, never surrendering to fear or shame. In the evenings, they would sometimes walk along the crystal bridges that arched over glowing water. They spoke little, yet every silence held meaning. Found herself laughing quietly when Elias described human customs, or when he expressed wonder at something as simple as a floating lantern or the color of a sunset. She began to trust him, not just as a diplomatic partner, but as someone whose heart understood the fragility of life. By the end of the first year, whispers in the palace had shifted. Where once courtiers had murmured about the weak human, now they murmured about the steady one. Elias had not conquered them with power or fear. He had conquered them with patience, humility, and an unwavering calm that seemed to flow from his very being. Watched him often, feeling a warmth that surprised her. In a palace built for perfection, Elias was imperfect, and in that imperfection he had become extraordinary. She realized that this human who had arrived as a symbol of fragile hope might just become the foundation for something stronger than treaties, speeches, or alliances. The galaxy outside still waited, tense and restless. Wars could erupt at any moment. But inside the palace, two unlikely souls began to weave a fragile thread of trust, patience, and understanding, one that could grow into something powerful enough to hold an entire world together. And in that quiet, glowing palace, amid mistakes, laughter, and gentle efforts, began to see that Elias Rowan was not just a human in a strange world. He was someone she could rely on, someone whose quiet courage could stand taller than any warrior. For months, the fragile peace between humans and held, like a crystal vase balanced on a knife's edge. Inside the palace, Elias and grew closer, not through grand gestures but through quiet understanding. He learned the patterns of her world. She learned to appreciate his calm strength. And yet, outside the palace walls, the galaxy simmered with old grudges that refused to die. The first warning came as a message from the border colonies. A human trade ship had been attacked near the outer asteroid fields. The patrol reported no human aggression, only misunderstanding, but the humans suspected sabotage. Every report escalated tension. The galaxy whispered of war. Felt it immediately. Sitting on the high balcony of her tower, she watched glowing ships move in patterns she knew too well. Every calculation of trajectories and weapon ranges danced in her mind. She clenched her hands, feeling helpless. And in the deepest part of her, a thought grew. This peace, delicate as it was, could shatter tomorrow. She sought Elias in the palace gardens, where he tended the floating plants with patient care. "They are preparing for war," she said quietly, voice trembling. "Even a single mistake could destroy everything we've built." Elias looked up, brushing soil from his hands. His eyes met hers, calm but intense. "Then we cannot let mistakes happen," he said softly. "We must show them that peace is stronger than fear, but fear is always waiting, isn't it?" She nodded, unable to speak. His quiet courage stirred something deep inside her, hope and fear at the same time. But peace, she realized, was never about calm days. It was about storms survived. Then the first direct threat arrived. A rogue clan, led by Commander, rejected the alliance entirely. They declared Elias a human intruder and a traitor to her bloodline. The rogue warriors claimed that the treaty dishonored history and demanded Elias be removed from the palace, dead or alive. The palace erupted in tension. Guards reinforced gates. Envoys from both sides argued endlessly. Courtiers whispered that the marriage was a mistake, a dangerous gamble, and felt torn. Her duty to protect her people demanded action, but her heart, now quietly bound to Elias, feared for his life. That evening, as the twin moons of reflected off the crystal walls, found him sitting alone, watching the stars. He did not speak at first, simply tracing constellations with his finger. She noticed the calm in his posture, though his eyes held worry. "Do you think it's too late?" she asked. Elias shook his head slowly. "No, it is never too late to try, but sometimes trying is not enough. Sometimes we have to stand, even when it feels impossible." She stared at him. His words were simple, but they carried the weight of conviction that shook her. He was human. He was fragile, yet his courage felt unbreakable. And she realized peace was not just a law, a treaty, or a promise. Peace lived in people like Elias, who refused to yield even when everything seemed lost. The next day struck. He attacked a border colony with precision, capturing diplomats, humans, and alike. The galaxy watched in horror as news arrived. The fragile alliance was in jeopardy. Felt her stomach drop. She wanted to rush to the colony, but the council forbade it. Their hands were tied, their diplomacy limited. Elias remained calm. He refused to panic. Instead, he began planning quietly, studying messages, analyzing every detail. Saw him in action and felt both admiration and fear. How could someone so human, so unarmed, face the chaos of war? Yet his mind was sharp, his focus unshakable. When she asked him how he could remain so calm, he said only, "If I panic, they win. If I hesitate, they win. I cannot stop the galaxy from being cruel, but I can choose how I face it." For the first time, felt the full weight of her feelings for him. Not love, not yet, but a deep, fierce respect. A realization that this human, gentle and small as he seemed, might be the only thing capable of holding their worlds together. That night she stood by the palace window, watching stars streak across the sky like silver fires. She whispered to herself, almost a prayer, "Protect him, protect us." In the distance, the galaxy rumbled with anger and fear. And in that moment both of them understood. The true battle for peace had only just begun. The news arrived like a blade through calm water. A rogue fleet had intercepted a convoy of diplomats, humans and alike. Their demands were impossible. The treaty must be destroyed or the captives would die. Panic surged through councils on both sides. For the first time since the marriage, felt the crushing weight of helplessness. She found Elias in the palace courtyard, packing under the soft glow of floating lanterns. His hands were clenched, jaw tight, but his eyes remained steady. Watching him, realized something. Elias did not panic like the rest of the galaxy. His fear existed, yes, but it did not dominate him. Fear could have frozen him. Instead, it sharpened his resolve. "We cannot negotiate through letters anymore," he said quietly. "They will not listen. They demand proof, proof that we will not bend, proof that we care enough to act." Shook her head. "You cannot go alone. It is too dangerous. Even warriors have failed against them." Elias turned to her, calm but unyielding. "I have to. If someone negotiates, it should be me. Not a soldier, not a council member. They must see that a human and a princess stand united. That peace is alive, even when they try to destroy it." Her heart clenched. She knew he was right, but that knowledge did not lessen the terror. Elias was not a trained fighter. He carried no weapons, no shields, nothing but his courage and his wits. And yet somehow she trusted him to survive. Before dawn he left. He moved through the palace corridors silently, carrying only a translator device and the barest necessities. Every shadow seemed taller than usual, every distant noise a potential threat. Yet he walked as if nothing could shake him. Caught sight of him at the palace gate, his figure small but determined against the rising sun. She wanted to call him back, to stop him, but words failed her. She could only whisper a prayer to whatever stars listened. Bring him home. The rogue clan's stronghold was nothing like the palace. The walls pulsed with energy, spikes and towers jutting into the sky, intimidating anyone who dared approach. When Elias arrived, guards immediately surrounded him, expecting a trembling diplomat. They did not know him. They did not know what humans could do. Inside, the room was dark, filled with captives huddled together. The leader commander stepped forward, a mountain of muscle and hatred, his eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. He spoke with authority, his voice echoing off the walls. "You should not have come, human. You are out of place. And the princess, she has betrayed her people by letting you live." Elias said nothing at first. He stepped closer, hands visible, calm, deliberate. "I came because this treaty matters," he said softly. "Because peace matters, because people matter. Not just humans, but everyone caught in this war." Laughed low and cruel. "Words will not save them. You will not save them. Do you understand that?" Elias' jaw tightened. "I understand perfectly." Then the commander struck him, testing his resolve. Elias stumbled, but he did not fall. Every guard in the room expected him to collapse, to plead, to beg. Instead, he met glare with unwavering eyes. He was human, yes. But in that moment he was something else entirely, a force they had never imagined, courage without surrender. Time slowed. Each second was a question. Would he survive, or would he become the first human crushed under a fist? He did not flinch. His presence alone carried a message the rogue warriors could not ignore. Fear was not humanity's master. Courage could exist in quiet forms. Strength could be measured in calm, not just firepower. Back at the palace, waited for word. She had sent no soldiers, no reinforcements, only trusted her human partner. Her hands trembled as she listened to the delayed messages, her mind painting every scenario. And yet, a part of her believed he would succeed, because Elias had always surprised her, always risen to challenges no one expected him to face. That night, the first true cracks in the rogue clan's confidence began to show. They had underestimated him. They had expected fear, panic, and weakness. What they found was unwavering resolve, quiet determination, and a human who refused to bow. And far away felt a small spark of hope ignite in her chest. Perhaps peace was not just an idea after all. Perhaps it was alive, breathing through the courage of one human who dared to act when diplomacy alone was not enough. The hall of fortress was massive, dark, and cold. Alien symbols glowed faintly on the walls, casting eerie shadows across the terrified hostages. Humans and alike huddled together, whispering prayers, counting heartbeats, and hoping for a miracle. None expected it to come from the slight figure standing before them. Elias Rowan stepped forward, his armor humming with energy. He was a mountain of muscle, a seasoned warrior who had faced countless enemies without flinching. He regarded Elias with a mixture of amusement and contempt. "You are out of place, human," he said. "Do you not see that you will die here? Do you not fear for your life?" Elias did not speak immediately. He looked at the hostages first, the frightened faces of those who had no power, whose fates rested on his shoulders. Then he met glowing eyes. Calmly, almost gently, he said, "I am afraid, but fear does not control me. I will not kneel. I will not give up on them, and I will not let you break what should not be broken." Laughed, a low, cruel sound that echoed through the chamber. He raised his hand and soldiers flanked Elias, ready to strike. The hostages gasped, expecting the human to fall, to plead, or to beg. But Elias did not move backward. He planted his feet firmly, raised his hands only in a gesture of peace, and faced every warrior without hesitation. The air in the room changed. Something subtle, something powerful rippled through the guards. They had never seen a human stand with such calm resolve. Many had fought humans before, but never one who met danger without trembling, without hate, without fury, just strength rooted in courage. Growing impatience struck Elias across the face. The human staggered and the crowd braced for him to collapse. But he didn't. He steadied himself, wiping blood from his lip, and looked back at the commander, unbroken. Every warrior in the room felt it then, the unshakable truth that this human would not yield. "You think your calm will save you," growled. "You are nothing." "I am something," Elias replied simply. "I am someone who protects those who cannot protect themselves. I am someone who will not allow fear to decide the fate of innocent lives." Roared and charged, and the soldiers followed. Elias did not fight with the grace of warriors, nor with their elegant weapon techniques. He moved instinctively, driven by sheer will. When a spear struck, he ducked and twisted the shaft, using the attacker's momentum to throw him aside. When another swung a glowing blade, he blocked it with precise timing, pushing the soldier back without using brute force. Each motion was fluid, unpredictable, and impossible to anticipate. The hostages watched, wide-eyed, as Elias defended them. He was not a trained soldier but he was more dangerous than any warrior who relied solely on skill or tradition. He fought with human adaptability, with intelligence, and above all, with heart. Every move he made carried the weight of his promise. No one would be harmed while he could stand. Even faltered, unable to understand how this human, so slight in appearance, could stand against seasoned warriors. The rogue commander barked orders, tried to regroup his soldiers, but the seed of doubt had already been planted. They had underestimated humanity, and Elias had proven them wrong. Hours passed, or perhaps only minutes. Time felt strange in the intensity of the battle of wills. When the last soldier hesitated, Elias seized the moment, moving swiftly to free the hostages. He guided them carefully, shielding them with his body, his every motion a combination of caution and calculated risk. Outside the hall, the reinforcements had secretly sent began to arrive. They moved quickly, silently, and efficiently. Elias did not pause. He continued holding the line, protecting the hostages, until the last one was clear. Only then did he allow himself to step back, chest heaving, face bloodied but eyes blazing with determination. When finally entered the hall, her gaze fell on him. She had heard tales of human courage, of legends that described impossible resilience. But seeing it in person was unlike anything she imagined. He was not perfect. He was not invincible, but he was brave. He was steadfast. And he had saved lives with nothing but his presence, his wits, and his courage. She rushed forward and grasped his hand, her voice trembling. You did it. You saved them all." Elias smiled, exhausted but calm. "We did it," he corrected gently. "They are safe, that is what matters." And in that moment, surrounded by freed hostages and stunned soldiers, realized something profound. Elias Rowan was not just a diplomat. He was a force of nature, a human who refused to kneel, a man whose courage could change the course of entire worlds. The galaxy had watched humanity from afar, wondering what they could bring to the stars. And now, for the first time, it was clear. Humans could stand unyielding in the face of anything. The air smelled of smoke and ozone. Sparks danced along the walls as the rogue soldiers regrouped, their weapons glowing like angry stars. They thought they had cornered the human, the diplomat, the unarmed stranger who had dared to challenge them. They were wrong. Elias Rowan stood in the center of the hall, chest heaving, blood streaked across his face. His suit was torn, his hands scraped, yet his eyes burned with a focus the soldiers could not understand. He was no warrior, no master of elegant forms or ancient battle arts, but what he possessed was something far older, far fiercer, determination that refused to yield. Charged first, massive armor clanking, energy weapon raised. Elias did not flinch. When the attack came, he moved instinctively, sidestepping the blow with human speed, twisting his own momentum to send him crashing into a reinforced pillar. The sound echoed through the chamber like a cannon shot. The soldiers hesitated. They had never seen a human move like this. Every step Elias took was unpredictable, almost chaotic, yet precise. He did not fight with style or tradition. He fought with intelligence, adaptation, and the burning promise to protect. His strikes were calculated but fluid, his defenses instinctive but unyielding. A soldier swung a glowing blade toward a hostage. Elias' hand shot out, grabbing the weapon and redirecting it with leverage they had never imagined. Another tried to tackle him from behind. Elias twisted, flipped, and used the attacker's momentum to hurl him across the room. Every motion was survival, every action was protection. Watched from the side, heart pounding, unable to believe what she was witnessing. This human, the gentle, clumsy diplomat she had once watched fumble with alien tools, was now a whirlwind of force and precision. His movements were raw but perfect in their instinct, a dance of survival that left even the fiercest warriors reeling. Roared furious, "How is this possible? He is human, he should be weak, he should kneel." Elias did not answer. Words were useless here. He had learned long ago that action speaks louder than speech. Every step, every strike, every defensive maneuver told a story. A human will not bow. A human will not break. A human will fight to protect what is right. The battle raged, sparks flying, walls from energy blasts redirected by clever maneuvers. Hostages scrambled to safety under Elias' careful guidance, shielded by his body as he continued to hold back an entire army. His mind raced faster than any weapon could track, predicting attacks, exploiting openings, surviving impossible blows. One soldier, larger than the rest, lunged with an electrified spear. Elias ducked under the strike, grabbed the shaft, and snapped it like a twig. Another tried to flank him, but Elias pivoted, using the assailant's own momentum to throw him against the wall. His stamina never wavered, his determination never faltered. Every human instinct, the lessons of survival, the discipline of patience, the raw force of will, came together in a terrifyingly beautiful storm. The tide began to turn. The rogue soldiers faltered, unsure how to fight someone so unorthodox, so fearless, so alive with energy that was not merely physical but moral. Evan's confidence wavered as he realized that brute strength alone could not overcome this human. When the last group of hostages was safely outside the hall, Elias paused for only a heartbeat. Then he charged forward, moving like a force of nature, driving back the remaining soldiers with relentless precision. Each strike, each dodge, each maneuver seemed almost superhuman. He was not invincible, but the combination of courage, intelligence, and sheer will made him unstoppable. By the time reinforcements arrived and human forces together, the rogue clan was broken, scattered, and defeated. Was captured, his soldiers disarmed, and the hall, once a chamber of fear, now hummed with the silent awe of everyone who had watched. Ran to him, tears streaming as he stood in the center of the hall, chest heaving, bloodied but unbowed. "Elias, you fought like a god of war," she whispered, voice trembling. Elias gave a tired, modest smile. "I fought like a human," he said simply. "I did what I had to do." But knew the truth. The galaxy would remember this day, not because of technology or weapons or strategy, but because of a single human who refused to kneel, who refused to give up, who fought with courage and heart that rivaled God's. And as the stars shimmered outside the fortress windows, realized that humanity's true power was not in its strength or fleet, but in its unwavering determination to stand, to fight, and to protect what it loved. No matter the odds, the rogue clan was defeated, was captured and confined, his threats no longer echoing across the galaxy. The hostages returned to their homes, trembling but alive. And yet, in the palace the weight of what had happened pressed on everyone's hearts. Peace had been preserved, but not by treaties, speeches, or armies alone. Peace had been preserved by a single human who refused to bow. Stood on the balcony of her tower, watching the first light of the twin suns glint off the crystal spires. The city below began to hum with life again. Citizens whispered in awe of the events that had unfolded, how a human, small and seemingly fragile, had faced an entire rogue army and emerged victorious. The galaxy's perception of humanity was changing, and for the first time, they realized that humans were not just another species. They were remarkable, unpredictable, and unstoppable when they believed in something greater than themselves. She felt a hand take hers. Elias stood beside her, bruised and bloodied but smiling quietly as he always did. "You should rest," said, her voice gentle, yet carrying the depth of her relief and admiration. "You've done enough to change the fate of both our worlds." Elias shook his head slightly. "I only did what I had to do, the others helped too, and peace is something we all carry every day." She looked at him, truly looked at him, and realized the enormity of what he had done. He had not fought for glory. He had not fought for pride. He had fought for life, for trust, and for the fragile promise that humans could stand together against a galaxy full of fear. In his courage, she saw a reflection of the hope she had once thought impossible. The next galactic assembly was unlike any before. Delegates from countless systems filled the great hall, their eyes wide with curiosity, awe, and a newfound respect for humanity. And Elias entered together. No longer were they just a symbol of political alliance. They were living proof that peace could survive, even in the face of overwhelming violence. When spoke, her voice trembled with emotion, carrying through the hall like a song. "Peace was born from a treaty," she said, "but it survived because of courage, because of heart, because of one human who refused to surrender." She turned to Elias, squeezing his hand. "He reminded us all that hope is not fragile. It is alive and it can fight." The hall erupted in applause. Delegates stood cheering as stories of Elias' actions spread. The galaxy had seen many heroes, many warriors, many leaders, but this human had done something different. He had combined intelligence, courage, and unwavering humanity into a force that no weapon could defeat. Elias felt the weight of their gaze, yet he remained humble. "I am just one man," he said quietly, almost to himself. But if one person can stand, maybe others can too. That evening the palace was quiet. The stars outside glittered like diamonds, untouched by the shadows of war. And Elias walked along the palace gardens, speaking little but sharing a connection that ran deeper than words. For the first time, they did not stand as symbols, diplomats, or pawns of peace. They stood as two souls bound by trust, courage, and the trials they had faced together. Stopped and looked at him. "You changed the galaxy," she whispered. "Not with weapons, not with words, with yourself." Elias smiled softly, brushing a hand against hers. "I only did what anyone would do for the people they care about." But knew it was more, much more. He had become a legend not because he was the strongest, the fastest, or the most skilled, but because he had faced fear, impossible odds, and still stood tall. Because he had reminded every being present that strength is not just physical, it is courage, determination, and heart. As night fell, the twin moons rose, reflecting off the crystal towers. The galaxy, once divided and uncertain, now whispered a new truth. Humanity was not to be underestimated. Humans could endure, adapt, and rise even in the darkest of moments. And one human, Elias Rowan, had shown the universe what it meant to fight like a god, and to care like no god ever could. Leaned her head on his shoulder. "The galaxy owes you more than it knows," she murmured. Elias held her hand, looking at the stars with quiet determination. "Perhaps," he said softly, "but maybe it only owes us the chance to keep trying, to keep building something better together." And in that moment, two worlds united not by fear, but by courage, heart, and hope. Peace was no longer fragile, it was alive. And somewhere in the galaxy, a legend was born. The human who fought like a god of war, and yet remained profoundly human.